back time. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backwards, so the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down, turning back time. Brothers and sisters, time can be defined as simply a measurement of itself. While it is often thought as a period of events or circumstances, time is really a measurement of itself. In other words, children, time is a measurement of time. If you take out the events that occurred in the life or a period, if you eradicate those events, if you remove them, if you ostracize them, you still have a lapse, a measurement of time. Brothers and sisters, you who are media, before time began, God was. Did you hear what I'm saying? The Genesis account of in the beginning refers to the beginning of time. Time that was measured not by man, but time that was measured by God. Brothers and sisters, we really don't know how long the 6 days of creation actually was. There was no clock to record the measurement of time. So while time began with the creation, there is no biblical record that specifies the measurement of time. How God created the moon and the sun and divided the night from the day as it relates to time will forever be a mystery. While time is a measurement of itself, we think of time in relations to our age and the events that happen in our lifetime. Is that right? It has been said that is why, brothers and sisters, that is why the Babylonians and the Egyptians began to measure time at least 5,000 years ago. Brothers and sisters, can I tell you today that one dynamic of time is it always moves forward and it never moves backwards. The past will always be the past. The present will always be the present. And the future will always be the future. No matter what period of time you find yourself in, children, the past will always be the past. The present will always be the present. And the future will always be the future. When the old folks used to say and talked about how time is winding up, it means that there will come a time when there will be no more time. Did you hear me? The prophecy of Revelation chapter 10 speaks to when time will be no more. The coming of a new heaven and a new earth in Revelation chapter 21 is also indicative of when time will be no more. But until then, the one dynamic of time is it always moves forward and it never moves backwards. Brothers and sisters, you cannot turn back time. Are you listening to me? You cannot turn back time. You might want to, but you cannot turn back time, especially as you get older. And you reflect on when arthritis had invaded the corridors of your joints. When migraines and allergies was something that somebody else had. You cannot turn back time, even if you might want to. When you reflect on when you used to could do what you can no longer do. When good RX and ZocDocs was a foreign language, when blood pressure and cholesterol was a non-issue, you might want to turn back time, but you can't. I mean, brothers and sisters, every once in a while, you think about the good times. Is that right? Every once. I used to hear folks talk about the good old days. But the good old days had some bad in it, but they reflecting upon the good in those days. Is that right? So every once in a while, all of us at some point, some juncture, especially as we get older, start thinking about the good times. Those moments that you wish those days could come back once more. If only you could turn back the hands of time. Brothers and sisters, while anti-aging and hormone injections promise to make you feel younger, while Botox and liposuction can make you look younger, you cannot turn back time. I hear people a lot of time talk about the new 30, the new 40, the new 50. Well, the new 30 is still 30. Come on. Did you hear me? The new 50 is still 50. Is that right? And while it is said that age is just a number, that number matters. I wish I had a witness to that. That number matters. Listen, it's a blessing to grow older. It's a blessing to grow older, but it has its consequences. It's a blessing to be young, but it has its consequences and its drawback. And while we can't turn back time, God can. Do I have a witness here? God can. God can, and that's what happens here in our text. God turns back time. I wish I had a witness here. God can turn back time. And I'm not talking about Moses, who at 120 years old, eyesight never got dim, nor his footsteps never got short. Talk about anti-aging. I'm not talking about when Joshua asked God to cause the moon and the sun to stand still so that he and the Israelites could continue to fight during the daylight. I'm talking about Isaiah chapter 38, verse number 8, when God turned back time. Brothers and sisters, can I tell you today that skeptics have tried to tell us that Isaiah chapter 38 verse number 8 was really an eclipse, because skeptics, also known as unbelievers, as agents of satanic influence, always try to minimize or dispute the miracles of God. But if you understand, as we do, that God created us from the dust of the ground, not the dust of the ground, because dirt and dust, come on, talk to me somebody, they are not the same thing. There's a difference. You plant plants in dirt. You don't plant plants in dust. You plant flowers in dirt. You don't plant flowers in dust. You plant trees in dirt. You don't plant trees in dust. You cannot plant anything in dust. There's a difference between dust and dirt. Did you hear what I'm saying? People buy dirt. People don't buy dust. Do I have a witness here? And from the dust of the ground, God formed male and female. If you understand, as we do, that God created the sun, the moon, and the stars, if you understand, as we do, that God separated the night from the day, created the lakes, rivers, and ponds, if you understand, as we do, that God created the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, the beasts of the field, and every creeping thing that creepeth on the face of the earth, if you understand, as we do, that God made a walkway in the middle of the Red Sea, turned a rock into a water fountain, and turned heaven into a bakery, then Isaiah chapter 38 verse number 8 was not an eclipse. It was simply God being God. Turning back time. Turning back time, brothers and sisters, was a sign of what God promised to King Hezekiah. The Chronicles of the King says that Hezekiah was the 13th king of Judah. He inherited a kingdom and a people who were caught up in idolatry. Idolatry is the worship of a man-made symbol as God. It appears that Israel struggled with idolatry. And their struggle with idolatry was due to the nations that surrounded them. They practiced idolatry. Did you hear me? You know, when in Rome, yeah, somebody know. And so when in Canaan, do as the Canaanites do it. That's what the nation of Israel did. That's what God's people had struggled with. They often had trouble separating themselves from what the world around them was doing. Like some church folk have trouble separating what the world is doing. It ought to be so that we act like church folks 24/7. Come on. It ought to be so. We ought not just be Christians for 5 minutes on Sunday. We ought to be Christians 24/7. Do I have a witness here? So Hezekiah with his people caught up in idolatry when he became king. Hezekiah tore down the pagan altars, got rid of the statues, and got rid of idolatry, and rededicated the nation of Judah to the God of David. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The record is, brothers and sisters, that Hezekiah got sick. And his sickness was unto death. He was dying, brothers and sisters. He was dying. But the old folks used to say that the Lord don't let nothing sneak up on you. And so God sent the prophet Isaiah to tell Hezekiah that the death sentence of his prognosis would happen. But more important than the sentence of death, God wanted Hezekiah to set his house in order. Wanted him to verbally say, to put in place who would be the next king of Judah. Because God always appoints leaders for his people. Y'all didn't hear it. I just made that up. God always appoints leaders for his people. For without a leader, his people will go astray. Jesus said, if you smite the shepherd, but instead of Hezekiah setting Judah in order, Hezekiah turned his face to the wall. And he prayed. He prayed. He didn't give up. He prayed. In the words of Psalm, he was not willing to die. He was not ready to die. Whatever sickness, whatever pain, whatever the affliction Hezekiah had, he did not give up. He prayed. Hezekiah understood something that we have trouble understanding, and that is, if God allows it, he can heal it. Did you hear what I'm saying? If God allows it, he can heal it. If God let it happen, he can rescind it, he can cancel it, he can revoke it, he can nullify it, he can retract it, he can reverse it. If God allows it, he can heal it. I wish I had it. So God heard Hezekiah's prayer. He saw Hezekiah's tears. So God sent the prophet Isaiah back to tell Hezekiah that he would add 15 years to his life. And the sign of God's promise to Hezekiah was God would turn back time. I wish I had a witness here. He would turn back time, that the sun shadow, the sunlight that falls on the stairway of Ahaz would go back 10 steps. As the sun had went down, God turned it. I wish I had. Listen, Hezekiah knew what God could do. But he didn't know what God would. Come on, talk to us. A songwriter said, it is no secret what God can do. What he has done for others, he'll do the same thing for you. But this was not that kind of miracle. For while God had healed people before, God had never turned back time as a sign of his promise. It had never happened, brothers and sisters. And so while Hezekiah knew what God could do, he did not know, like some of us, what God would do. The miracle of turning back time is indicative of the promises of God, that God always keeps his word, and whatever he promised, that he will do. It's written in stone, brothers and sisters, and that's why one writer said, I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor a seed begging for bread, because whatever God promised, that he will do. Do I have a witness here? I said, do I have a witness here? Whatever he promised, you can hold on to it. You can believe in it. You can trust in it. Because God always keeps. He always keeps his promise. And so, the record is that Hezekiah lived to 15 more years. Because our God is a God of prayer. Jesus said, whatsoever we ask in his name, that he will do it for us. And I know there are times when it seems as if God is not listening to our prayer. There are times when it seems like heaven's window has closed up. There are times when it seems like that God has did to us what God did to Jesus when he was on Calvary's cross. For the record heals that when it got dark from the 6th to the 9th, that God turned his back on Jesus. But then I heard A theologian said, God did not turn his back on Jesus, but he turned his back on the sin in Jesus' body. Did you hear what I'm saying? And what would have happened? What would have happened? I thought about this. What would have happened if Hezekiah had not prayed? Did you hear what I'm saying? Because no one told him to pray. No one encouraged him to pray. And no one prayed for him. Did you hear me? So it was that Hezekiah, he did not know, Luke chapter 18, verse number 1, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. He didn't know. Mark chapter 11, verse 24, what things you desire when you pray, you believe that you will receive them, you shall have. Did you hear what I'm saying? Nevertheless, Hezekiah prayed. Did you hear me? He did not know. 1 Thessalonians 5:17, pray without ceasing. He did not know. Luke chapter 11, verse number 9, ask and it shall be given. Seek, ye shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. I wish I had a witness here. He did not know. Matthew chapter 26, verse 41, Jesus said, watch and pray. He did not know. Romans chapter 8, verse 26, that the Spirit helps our infirmities and making intercession for us. Did you hear me? He did not know the Lord's Prayer. Nevertheless, Hezekiah prayed. I wish I had a witness here. He did not know that his prayer would change things. He did not know that his prayer would change the perception of things. He did not know if his prayer would change the circumstance of things. Nevertheless, I said, nevertheless, Hezekiah prayed. Did you hear what I'm saying? And I had heard a songwriter say, pray on, my child. If your mother don't pray, you pray on. If your father don't pray, you pray on. Did you hear what I'm saying? So can't you hear Hezekiah praying? Notice here, it was not a long prayer. It was not a repetitious prayer, but it was a sincere prayer. It was a heartfelt prayer. Did you hear what I'm saying? I heard Hezekiah say, remember, Lord, remember now, I'm begging you, how I have walked before you. I've walked in truth with a perfect heart. I've done everything you asked me to do. I wish I had somebody here, and I heard him say, amen, as he rolled his over in his bed and began to cry. And I don't know about you, I got to leave you now, but I feel like a little prayer. Did you hear what I'm saying? Because it's me that's standing in need of prayer. I wish I had somebody here. It's not Sister Johnson, it's not the deacon, but there is me that's standing in the need of prayer. Not my mother, not my father, but there is me. Yes, need a prayer. If you're standing, you need a prayer. Shake somebody's hand. Tell them it's me, not you. That's standing. You need a prayer. Let me. Come on, me. That's standing. You need a prayer. And so I came this morning with my own prayer. Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No other help that I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, God promised Hezekiah because Hezekiah prayed. So God, as a sign of his promise, turned back time. He made the sun go backwards. Our God is an awesome. Songwriter said, our God is an awesome God. He reigns forever and ever. The doors of the church is open for the reception of members by letter, Christian experience, candidate to be baptized.